keep their lamps filled with oil and bridesmaids who aren't ready. Through these hard and challenging words, Jesus disorients us and surprises us with who is included in the kingdom of God and where and how Jesus shows up in the world. In this parable, Jesus promises us that he is going to always show up and be with those who are in need. Which means if we want to be close to Jesus and experience God's presence, to be part of the kingdom of God, we need to be with those who are in need, and even with ourselves in our need. Right after this passage, Jesus announces his impending crucifixion and the events that will lead to the last week. Jesus is telling us and showing us once again that the reason that he is with us is for God to show us most fully and completely how much God loves us. Loves each one of us, including the last and the least. And this is the surprisingly good news of the kingdom of God, that God is with us here and now, revealed in the fellowship of broken people we call the church, made manifest in the ordinary elements of bread and wine, and available to us in the seemingly small gestures of mercy we offer and are offered each and every day. It may not be where we expect God to show up, but it's just where we need God to be. So I'm going to invite Keith Carlson to introduce Ben Ogden to us as they share where God is showing up among the last and least.
Thank you. Just want to give you a little background information on Ben. I was fortunate to be hired by Ben last year to work at the Welcome Inn. He's been doing church-based outreach for the chronically homeless for the past 16 years. He was at 4th Street from 2003 to 2015 when we took our youth, high school youth, to there during the Easter break. He also has an undergraduate in psychology, a master's in management, and will be completing his MBA in December. He afforded me the time throughout the last 15 weeks from December through March to glean information from him so that I would know when we opened my days how to be a success. And he's been here on Thursdays to enjoy lunch with us, the volunteers and guests. And I'd like to have Ben come up, and I'd like to thank him for all you've given me.
Turn the pulpit on.
Okay, try it that way.
Try it this way.
I lied.
We're just teasing. Is that better? Can I approach this?
Yep.
We're good?
Yeah.
Everyone can hear me okay? All right. Awesome. Thank you for having me this morning. As Pastor Julie had indicated, my original intention was to come and speak with you a little bit about Welcome Inn Day Center. And I've been working with Presbyterian churches for almost 2 decades now, specifically with the chronically homeless. And as I said, most of you don't know me, I live in Madison Heights. My home backs up to the nature center. And I've spoken in many churches. Speaking is not my forte. My education is in psychology and business. I'm hands-on with homeless folks. So I tend to be a little bit more gruff than eloquent. So I always rely on the hand of God to help me on the morning I've got to speak. So as I was sitting in my office at my computer, trying to figure out a way to talk about the Welcome Inn that didn't sound like a sales pitch. God, give me some kind of sign how to do this. I just noticed that the sounds in my house, I have a dog and a cat, had gone quiet. As I'm sitting there staring at a blank screen, I noticed the cat go trotting by. And then my dog goes trotting by, and then there's this weird, unusual silence in my living room. I go out there, sitting in the middle of my living room now is a chipmunk. I have a dog there that backs up to the backyard near the nature center. And the cat decided to bring it in, so there's a chipmunk. There's my cat staring at the chipmunk trying to figure out what to do. There's my dog staring at the cat, trying to figure out what to do. And I got to spend about a half an hour teaching them kindness and love as I had to escort this chipmunk safely from my home. The message was, though, when I asked, how do I sell the welcome in, was, don't. And so what I decided to do was deviate. Instead of talking about the wonderful, I'm going to talk about some affirmations about what we do. I'm about as Presbyterian as someone can be without formally being Presbyterian. And I have a lot of hands-on with some of the work that you guys have helped us do. It's great, some of the work that we do now. So I'm going to talk a little bit, stemming on Pastor Julie and more specifically Matthew. And what I'm going to tell you this morning is true. Everything I say is true. The chipmunk story was true. Yes, it made it out safely. No, it wasn't the first time I've been killed. That's why there's a box with a little hole in it and big old gloves next to my back door just in case. But it was the first time this summer we've had it. To me, that is a sign. I think the most important part of Matthew's message that I always take is simply, just as you did for the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you do for me. That is an important message in today's world. We can open the paper and we see bomb threats at Royal Oak churches yesterday. We see shootings at bars last night. The world that we live in, here are some statistics for you. America is number one at environmental pollution. We are number one at housing prisoners. And I love my country. These are just truths. We are number one at weapons prevention. But we're 22nd best in the world at social immigration. We're 16th best in the world at caring for our elderly and we're 9th best in the world at educating our children. On any given night in our country, pick any one of them, there are over 550,000 people that are homeless. In Michigan, right now, the report just came out last week, we have 65,000 homeless people. In our tri-county area, because they cluster us as a county when they count numbers, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, we have over 17,000 homeless people. In Oakland County alone, over 4,000. Now, of those numbers, half are seniors and children. 20% of our homeless are honorably discharged veterans. 1 in 5. And 1 in 3 of our homeless population have an undiagnosed, untreated, disabling mental health issue. I have a favorite quote. I have 2 that I'm going to use. This one, I think, rings true in so much work that I've tried to do over the years. Let's see if you can guess who it was. Some of you will know, some of you won't. The quote is, we think sometimes that poverty is only being hungry, naked, and homeless. But the poverty of being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for, forgotten by everybody, is a much greater hunger, is a much greater poverty than the person who has nothing to eat. Do we know who that was? Thank you. Connectedness. So love and connectedness, interestingly, I Googled the definition of the word love this morning. First 3 answers, Webster's Dictionary. Strong affection for another arising out of kinship or personal ties. Affection based on admiration, benevolence, or common interest. Third definition is unselfish, loyal, and benevolent concern for the good of another. Now, benevolence comes in place of there. Benevolence is essentially core kindness. What this means to me is, as I look at the paper, as I look at the work we do, as I look at the work that you guys do on Thursday, is that we live in a world full of hungry people. The people that we live amongst, some of us sitting in here, we're starving physically, we're starving emotionally, we're starving spiritually. And the need for connectedness and the pervasiveness of loneliness is palpable. We can almost reach out and touch it. We can almost, it is so deep and so strong and so sad, we can almost touch an emotion. But it's tricky, right? Because not everybody who is homeless is awesome. You know, we run the Welcome In, a program that averages 55 plus people a day. I'll give you some numbers for that. 10,000 meals we served last year. 280 guests we held. 3,000 guest check-ins. And it would be foolish of anyone of us to assume that when we look around the room and automatically guarantee that everyone in that room is awesome. But is that ours to determine? Is that ours to judge? And is that ours to then say, you are not worthy of love that is given to me from on high to extend on to you? They're broken. They're fragile. Half of our homeless population are seniors and children. Today, between Pontiac and Detroit, we have 1,000 students that are reported as being homeless. 1,000. And that's reported as being homeless, which means that those were the ones that were willing to admit it. Imagine how embarrassing it is to be in primary education where you are judged by your clothes and your shoes, to openly admit that you're homeless. And if that is where it starts, and that continues on year after year after year, eventually these people are starving. Starving to the point of feeling like they're drowning. Now, I was a paramedic a million years ago. I'm almost 47. That's old for something. And as part of becoming a paramedic, they teach you deep water rescue. It is a requisite. And what they teach you, though, is that unless you are an exceptionally proficient swimmer, very good at that scenario, it is extraordinarily dangerous because drowning people often drown the person safely. That is not much different from people who are emotionally and spiritually drowning. I live in a world where I watch people who are so physically hungry that they will eat garbage. We are in a world who are so emotionally and spiritually hungry that they will eat garbage. The drive for that fulfillment is so strong. So my second quote, somebody might know. I bet you know I'll get this one. It's easy. How can I give love when I don't know what it is I'm giving? How can I give love when I just don't know how to give? But how can I give love when love is something I just never had? Anyone? It's John Lennon. John Lennon. How can I give love if love is something I have never had? That is why what we do at Welcome In, that is why what you do at the Day Center are so critically important. Because you give love to people who don't know how to even receive love. Pastor Jackie, I'm sorry. Why I said yes, this is actually interesting. So I hate talking in front of crowds. And so Pastor Julie, because I come on Thursday, said, hey, you want to come and talk to us on Communion Sunday? I said, yeah, okay. Because I like Keith and I like what you guys do. And then I remembered that Pastor Julie is friends with Pastor Jackie at Northbrook. And Pastor Jackie's on my board, which means she's one of my bosses. So that immediately changed the enthusiasm of my response. So that's where the confusion came from. Because I know that if I had said no, I would have been told yes. So it's always better to do things you want to. I've got a couple stories about homelessness in my experience, in my world. So when I was going to school to be a paramedic, I was 18, and I was working for a law firm in Detroit. I was a paramedic in Detroit. This would have been in the early to mid-90s. And so in those days, it wasn't Chase Bank, it was NBD. And along the Griswold side of the NBD building, there is a wall. Griswold slopes up towards the river, and there's a wall that begins very low, and it gets gradually higher as the street goes down. And I would sit on that wall every day, and I'd have my lunch. I'd have my lunch and my orange crush. It was kind of a ritual. And I got to know this guy named Joe. He worked the grounds of the NBD building. He was maintenance. And so we would chat just about every day. How's it going? You know, nice day, just normal, you know, to catch the game, that type of just chit-chat stuff. And one day I was reaching for my orange crush, and I accidentally knocked the bottle to the ground, and it shattered. And I saw that Joe was up the way, so I wandered up the street and I said, hey, you got a box or something and a broom, I can clean this up. And my mom raised a pretty considerate individual for the most part. And Joe, who I talked to for days and days and days, weeks into months, someone that I didn't know deeply personally, but I knew casually, looked to me and smiled. And he said, no, don't worry about it. I'm going to grab it and throw it in the dumpster. That way the bums can cut their hands and make it to the trash. True story. That was my first introduction to homelessness. I went to Boston High School, Troy, for elementary. I was my first job in the city, I was a paramedic, working for a law. My first introduction to how people perceive, respond, and engage with homelessness was Joe smiling as he told me how he would enjoy bums cutting their hands as they dig through the trash. They're not digging through the trash for money. None of those bums thought that NBD accidentally threw away thousands of dollars. They were looking for lunch scraps. They were looking for sustenance. And he derived joy from their harm. Story number 2. After working at Open Door, which I had been at for many, many years, started in '03, we had a volunteer there. He's since passed. And he was a man who had a double amputation from the knees down. And he would come in and volunteer. I'm watching my time. He would come in and volunteer, and I would watch him, and as he would get tired, and as his legs, he had prosthetics, as his legs would start to hurt, he would, instead of going home, sit down, pull off his prosthetics, and continue to sort clothes or do other things while he was sitting. And I admired that about him. This was a man easily 2, 3 times my age, and his energy and his spirit was humbling. And so I asked him, I said, Walter, what happened to your legs? You work side by side with someone for quite some time, you get to a point where it's okay to ask that curiosity. And he said, I was homeless a long time ago. And I was doing a lot of bad things, and I was doing a lot of bad drugs. And one night I was passed out in an alley, and someone threw gasoline on me and set me on fire. But the Lord saved me. The burns were relegated to the lower part of my body. I lost my legs, but he gave me my life, and he gave me my future. And as long as I can, I will give back, because I can never thank God enough. What do you say to that?
I take pictures here all the time, right?
What do you say to someone when at the end of a long day, you're feeling grumpy and tired and you don't want to deal with someone who smells funny? And here's this guy who, instead of going home because he's in pain, just alters his situation so he can continue to give. The problem with that is that forever changed my perception of what I anticipate from the guests that we serve. Because everybody can serve. The third is my most recent story, and it comes from Welcome In. And it mirrors why what happens here on Thursday is important. What you do on Thursday is low barrier, right? And so for those of you who aren't clear, what low barrier is as long as you are not a physical threat, then come in, we love you. As long as you're not going to hurt us or yourself, we will welcome you in. If we think you're going to hurt yourself, we will connect you to some care very quickly. But as long as you're not a threat, we pass no judgment. That's God's job. So you can come in silly, you can come in a little loopy in the head because you've taken something or drank something. We're going to love you regardless because that's our job. And in a low barrier shelter, low barrier entry does not mean low barrier stay. It doesn't mean that welcome in, it doesn't mean that here. So just because everybody's welcome in, once you are in, we have an anticipation from you. You are in God's house. You are amongst a family. And you are at least going to be relaxed and civil because you are guests in this home. But as a low barrier center, when you say to everyone come in, it goes back to the fact that not everybody that comes in is awesome. Not ours to judge. But this last winter, most of you remember, was extremely cold. It was a hard, hard winter for a lot of us. We averaged 55 guests a day. During the cold snaps, we would bump off of 80 quite frequently. Having served 10,000 meals in 4 months, we saw a lot of people. We do that because we know that there are those out there who are amazing. There are those Walters out there who are amazing, that without a place they can go to get kindness, love, and care, they will have nothing else to do. And so we met a girl, we'll call her Megan, because Megan is still with us in this world, and I don't want to paint anyone who would ever meet her. And she came to us within a week of falling homeless. Mid-40s, deaf since birth. Cochlear implants. Those are the implants they put in behind your head, and they transmit sounds into your brain. And she had two wonderful, loving parents who over-cared for her. What that meant is they did everything for her. They took care of every one of her needs. She did have a slight, and does have a slight learning disability, but as someone who's about to finish my second master's, there are times when I have a slight learning disability. Her batteries were dead. Her parents died in rapid succession. Her mom passed, and within a month her dad passed. She had no concept of how to pay bills. She had no concept of how to grocery shop. She had no concept of how to live independently. She was very quickly evicted from their home. She fell into homelessness. Without a program that is low barrier, without something like Welcome In, without something like Day Center, she would have had nowhere to go. So what we do is, of all the people that come in, we allow a space for those to receive love who don't know how to receive it, who don't know how to give it, but at the same time also provide space who do. And because she got connected to us and she worked directly with Keith and directly with our caseworker, we started first getting her to understand, having to write, because having cochlear implants since childhood, she didn't learn American Sign Language, so we couldn't get an interpreter. She didn't read lips very well, so it became a very slow, laborious process. Would you agree? A lot of time and patience while we keep some of the craziness at bay. But because, again, and I'll reference Day Center, housing comes here, veteran services come here, outreach programs come here, because people who need come here. And through the work that we do, through the work that Keith did, through the work that the Presbytery does, because for those of you who don't know, Welcome In's not Presbyterian, technically. But it's at a Presbyterian church. It was at a Presbyterian church before the one it's at now. Half of its board are Presbyterian pastors. My concept of Presbyterianism is exactly what Welcome In is. As an outsider looking in, I can't think of anything more important about Presbyterians than the fact that they reach out with kindness and love and care constantly, more so than any other church I've ever been to. But by working with Melissa, connecting her to our caseworker, getting her into a housing application process, she got housing. But that wasn't enough, because housing, just so we get, let's understand that if I'm homeless and I come on Thursday, and I meet with Community Housing Network and they put me in a house, which is usually in Waterford or Pontiac, because landlords are not required to take Section 8. It's not a legal mandate. And so they have to send folks where there are houses available, so traditionally Waterford and Pontiac. They sent her out there, here's your apartment, good luck. And she slept on an empty floor. No bed, no furniture, no food, no dishes. Good luck, here's your place, good job. Is that enough? So through volunteers and through the kindness of others, because of this connection, through this not really Presbyterian ministry, we got her connected to the furniture bank. We got her apartment furnished. We got her access to a place that would provide her batteries with enough frequency that she would not have to go without being able to hear. We then took it another step further, got a volunteer to become her liaison and get her into permanent supportive housing, which means that the state finally agreed that she was someone who needed care beyond the 6 months, which is all you get when you get housing. And now she exists in a world with help of our caseworker, with help of Presbyterian volunteers, where she is coupon cutting and menu planning and grocery shopping and has learned the bus schedule. And she has become an independent, autonomous adult human for the first time in her entire life. And I've been doing this a long, long time, right? In Detroit, I've done work in Pontiac. Before I started working with homeless, I was at an agency in Pontiac working with guys coming out of jail. I get both towns. And the reality is if she had fallen into a place that was not undergirded by Presbyterian love, she would have never made it. Someone would have seen her as a paycheck. Someone would have taken advantage of her. She probably would not be with us to this day, yet strangely her paychecks would continue to be cashed. We live in a world where we have forgotten how to love. I'm not going to ask us to raise our hands, but think about it for a moment. Do we in here, any of us, struggle with love? Is everyone in here capable of even loving ourselves completely and fully? As you've done for the least of my brothers and sisters, you've done for me. And the least is everywhere. It's in our neighborhood, it's in our homes, it's in our homeless population, it's in our executive level suites who make golden parachute level money while other people go. We need to remember that the least of the brothers and sisters are everywhere, and be affirmed that because of the work that you continue to do and the kindness and love you continue to extend, this world is a better place. And people like Walter and people like Megan would have never had a chance to realize the kindness and love that they did. So I'm glad to be here. I'm thankful for being a peripheral part of your family. Because most of you see me skulking around here on Thursdays. I'm grateful for the love and energy that you push through Keith, that he brings to the program that I run. And I invite all of you at any time to not just visit the day center on Thursdays, to come visit, welcome in, and see the totality of what the kindness and love can really do for the lost brothers and sisters. Thank you.
Okay.